Good afternoon, folks. We are once again live. So let's get everything switched over and we will kick off today's Beatbox Jam stream, a rare Monday one. There we go. And be careful my mic doesn't obscure my face. Hey, I see Iconic's here. What's up, Iconic? How are you doing today? Weird. I don't normally do these streams on Mondays, but it's the only free day I have this week before I leave town. So here we are. Let me put on a real quick beat that I threw together as we were loading up, just to have some background noise, and we'll talk about what we're doing today. All right, this shouldn't be too loud. Iconic says, just chilling. Hope you're good. Yeah, I'm doing all right. It was a mostly uneventful day at work today, but I tell you, I think I mentioned on the stream yesterday that I just got my round of COVID shots and flu shots, and my entire body is sore today. Which, compared to the other times I've gotten the shots, usually I will have like chills and I will be laid out for an entire day. So at least it wasn't as bad, but yeah, kind of sore. Should be gone by tomorrow. All right, so what are we looking at today? Iconic says sending good healing vibes. Well, I appreciate that, Iconic. It'll be fine. It's usually just a temporary annoyance, and then it goes away. So I had to think a little bit since I kind of decided right at the last minute to do the jam stream today instead of one of the other stream types. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about some ideas for freestyling and kind of how that goes into drilling and practicing when it comes to beatboxing. I think I want to try and do the timed freestyle challenge because it's been quite a while since we've done that. Let me see if I can activate it first. First, we'll put this up just so I don't forget. And the timer, which I haven't used in quite a while. Let me make sure I know how this thing runs. Okay, that'll hide it. Need to find the script for it, I think. Because if I hide it, oh no, it'll reset. I guess that's okay for now. We'll just hide it and put it away, and I'll write the personal best down when we stop. So we're going to start with warm-up, like we usually do. Some pretty simple stuff to get the blood flowing. Then we'll talk a little bit about the ideal of freestyling and kind of revisit some ideas from before. And then we will try and actually keep track and do a timed challenge, and we'll see. Personal best is shown on the screen, 20 minutes, 28 seconds, and it has been a while. So we will see if I'm able to beat that. And then from there, we'll go into BGM brainstorming. Stop this. And we'll go ahead and kick off warm up and get started. This is going to kind of segue into freestyling since I usually just freestyle a bunch of things at once, but this will be a bit more basic and compared to the stuff we do a little bit later. So let's get started. All right, more or less just kind of a simple set of back-to-back beats, and then we're going to take those ideas, and when we actually get into freestyling, we're going to try and build on complexity. And this will be a challenge. Again, I haven't done this in quite a while, but before we actually try and do the timed challenges, one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is sort of the methodology and strategy when it comes to freestyling and putting together beats. And this is topical because, like I mentioned before, the reason why I'm going to be gone is because I'm going back to Homeworld, and it has been years since I've been back there. I'm going to see some people that I haven't seen in quite some time. And the last time I was there was right after I started beatboxing. It's been a little more than 3 years. So I definitely knew how to do it, but no one over there really has seen me do it in person before. And so that's probably going to come up at some point while I'm there. And so the idea of being able to have things programmed into your brain, have on demand if someone asks you to bust something out, is a whole concept and theory when it comes to freestyling. And in trying to come up with the discussion topics for today, I was trying to think, for me personally, since I've been doing beatboxing for a while now, what my strategy was when it comes to having things that I like to draw upon or use for just on the spot, no preparation. Hey, I heard you can do this thing. Show me something cool. And like we've talked about before on other streams, the technical aspects of beatboxing and things like the really complex patterning or the unique sounds or technicality are more impressive to people who know how it works. And what I mean by that is, if you are talking with other beatboxers and you're comparing notes and showing off techniques with each other, they have more context for how difficult it is to do some of the things that beatboxers do. Good example would be high speed patterns and technicality things that are really rapid and difficult to do. And we talked about the TKKs, things like that is hard to do, but to a person who doesn't know beatboxing, if you were to just do that out of the blue, if they say, show me something, they're not going to understand what it is. They'll probably think that's really weird, and it sounds like a lot of fast noises, but it doesn't really resonate because they don't know what the technique is. Versus if you have a really unique, fast technicality pattern and you're showing another beatboxer, they would understand, like, oh yeah, that's pretty unique. I've never seen that before, because they understand the context. So when it comes to talking about beatboxing, freestyling, putting something together, what I've generally found, and I haven't done this for a lot of people, I never really go out, and I don't really have a social circle. So it's not like I'm around people where I have an opportunity to do beatboxing out there in the real world. It's just really not an environment I find myself in a lot. But it'll be pretty much unavoidable when I go back to Homeworld, since, again, I'm going to be seeing people I haven't seen in a long time. So what I've found is people don't need to see crazy technique, because, again, they won't understand why it's a crazy technique. What tends to catch people's ear when it comes to seeing beatboxing for the first time is the actual musical aspect of it. And what I mean by that was something we've talked about in previous streams a little, where, again, the technical aspect is something really hard, is impressive, but it'll be impressive to different people. But if you do something as simple as layering a bass harmony or melody on top of a beat and then adding in some unique sound effects, because the regular person's non-beatboxing oriented brain is not really going to have any context for that, it'll seem probably more impressive because it seems more like regular music, if that makes sense. So even something, and this is kind of what I've been experimenting around with in my offline time, instead of doing something like a really fast drum and bass pattern with a lot of really quick technical things, which, again, to a beatboxer might sound more impressive, doing something a bit more simple where you're just layering things together to create a more complete sound and presenting that is probably going to be more impressive to someone who doesn't know beatboxing. So one example I was thinking of would be just doing like a throat bass line over some kicks, hats, and BGM snares. BGM snare is another one that really catches people off guard because they think of, what they know about beatboxing from media or in movies or whatnot. You probably see a lot of like sharp K snares or PSH snares because that's the old school, going back to the roots of beatboxing in the 80s. You had a lot of the OGs when they were creating the foundation were doing a lot of those sounds. So that's what people technically are most likely exposed to. And so things like a PSH snare would be like a psh, psh. So an old school beat might be something like something simple like that you would hear in a more 80s old school hip hop type of genre and sound. But if you are moving into the more contemporary era of beatboxing styles and techniques, and again, coming up with a combination of things that to the beatboxer is not really that complicated, but to someone who's never heard it, it's going to sound a lot more interesting. So for example, maybe we do something more dubstep oriented, which again, that's not a style people normally equate with beatboxing. I know because people have told me. So we put something together like and then again, I know I say simple, but it's only because I've been doing this for a while. But layering in a bass line and then adding in all the other sounds around it, it's not a very complex mini routine. I've done stuff, permutations on that a lot here. But to the untrained ear and person unfamiliar with beatboxing, it's going to seem a lot more impressive because it's like something comparable to actual songwriting. And so the general philosophy, I think, tends to be try and create something that someone can equate to something they understand. That's the kind of takeaway of what I'm trying to get at here. And another thing that tends to go over pretty well if you're forced to be on the spot in beatboxing is replicate something people know. And if you can do that and show somebody something that they know that's familiar, then it'll automatically sound more impressive to them. And the whole point of the discussion isn't to say how do I want to show off in front of people, but when it comes to what's going to be effective. And I know because I used this example once a long time ago, and it wasn't necessarily that hard, but everyone who saw it was like, oh, wow, that's really cool that you can do that, which kind of surprised me. But what I did was I did this. They said, oh, can you do something cool for beatboxing? And I said, okay, how about this? And then I actually went into the first few bars of Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars. And when I did that, everyone said, oh, I know that song. Everybody knows that song. It's one of my favorite songs from the last several years. But again, recreating something that people know in a beatboxing form is going to be more familiar and will probably impress people more. And so I guess to kind of wrap up my explanation here, try and think of how to create something that someone is going to equate closer to like a 1-for-1 with music. I'm not saying that regular beatboxing isn't music. That's a debate as old as time. But it doesn't have to be complexity. It should be something that's more complete as opposed to more difficult to do. And I will most likely be in this situation over the next week. So I will report back when I see you folks again after I return. And I'll let you know how it goes, since I'm pretty sure it's going to be unavoidable. Or maybe nobody will ask. That's also possible too. But the point is to be prepared. That way, if someone does, you're ready, and you don't have to pull something out of your rear. So to that end, let us try for a new personal best time when it comes to freestyling nonstop. And to recap, since again it's been months since I did this last, the personal best of 2028, that is without stopping, physically stopping to either rest, reset, or whatnot. You can pause, but I can't stop for any prolonged amount of time. Otherwise, that ends the timer. And I could have sworn, unless it is in a different spot, scripts. There it is. Okay, this will make it easier. So put this on. Challenge timer. Just have to do it from another window. Reset. Okay, got it. As soon as I hit start, it'll keep going. And hopefully you can't see the bounding boxes from OBS. Let me fix that. There. That looks better. So what we'll do is we'll give it a try and see if we can beat our personal best. Give me one sec. I'm going to change my caption too so that it reflects what we're doing. And if people jump onto the stream, this is another thing that may be iconic since you're hanging out here. If people jump on the stream and they say hi or they start talking and they don't know why I'm not responding to them, then if you want to explain that we're doing like a nonstop challenge deal, which people who've been here before have seen, but in case we get some new folks that are wondering what's going on and that I'm not ignoring them, we can let them know. There we go. Let me move the timer a little bit. It's not all bunched together. Or not. There we go. All right. So I'm going to hit the timer and we will head off to the races. Time to beat 2028. See if we can do it. I hate 3/4. Breakdown. Oh boy, it is very warm. I am sweating. Oof. 2242. Let us mark that down as a new personal best. Sweet. That is going to be a nightmare to try and beat later. I think I could probably have pushed it to 25, but doing like a throat bass for a good majority of the freestyle beats was starting to wear on my voice. My voice was starting to get really tired. But I kind of saw Iconic out of the corner of my eye in the chat as I was going, which is why I kind of switched to that really complex drum and bass beat right at the end, kind of finished on a good note. But good, it's captured for posterity. I should think about clipping those. We don't do them that often, but I wonder if people would find it interesting to see just the non-stop freestyling part just captured as part of the archives. I'll think about that. Whew. All right, let's cool it down a little bit and move on to BGM brainstorming. Okay, we can hide personal best. All right. So what do we have set up for BGM brainstorming? It's gonna be pretty much identical to the last several we've done. I've got Synthesizer Kun hooked up here. Once I turn it on, I will kill my boost and my mic so I don't get interference. And then what I'll do, just like before, I will start putting together ideas for a beat. But this time, I want to open the floor before I start, because sometimes after I put stuff together, I'll look for feedback or input from the chat. But let's switch up the formula a little bit. So before, I'd like to get either a theme or a genre for a BGM track type. It doesn't have to be like a title, but like some sort of pointer to where we're going to go. So you could do something like an electronic type song, a dark type song, like an aggressive type song, something fast or higher energy. I'd like to take a suggestion from the chat, and then I will use that as a baseline for actually creating something. Like, I think that could be fun. As long as it's not a waltz. In the nonstop freestyle challenge, I did like a real short bit with a 3/4 waltz, and I exclaimed at the end, I hate 3/4 because 3/4 drives me absolutely nuts. So don't suggest a waltz. But it could even just be not even a genre, just like a kind of a theme, like, you know, moody and dark versus upbeat and happy. I think I've accidentally created upbeat and happy at least 3 times in the last several jam streams when we've been doing BGM brainstorming. So let me clear off this particular file, and we'll see if chat wants to throw out something for me to use. Again, just an idea. Doesn't have to be really specific. Iconic says urban city. Okay, so kind of like a futuristic urban cityscape type of theme. Okay. I think I can could point to something like that. I've got kind of a rough idea for an electronic song. So let's take that idea and make it kind of like a Metropolis theme, and we'll see how close within the mark we can get. Okay, I'll put my levels up here, and we'll start with the beat and see where we go from there. So let's give it a try. All right. Let us reconvene and talk about the end results. Let me turn off the synth, get rid of the distortion. Okay, so this one took some interesting turns. I think it ended up being a bit more mellow, but it still sounds kind of like slick and futuristic, I think. Let's kind of break down the components. I went with a pretty standard mid-tempo beat, nothing really that crazy on the drums. Then we bring in the bass line. This one is just a single bass instrument, which I normally layer a couple, but this one only had one, and it kind of just stands out on its own, which ended up being interesting, which is good because it's got kind of a weird progression. I don't want to have to try and duplicate it. It is similar to another track I've written that I don't think you folks have heard. The bassline note progression is kind of similar, but it adds a couple extra notes, so it's not identical. And I don't even think it's the same octave. It might be slightly off. But that last note, that step down and then step back up, that's what makes this one different. But I'll have to listen when I record this to see if it sounds too similar to one of the other ones. That's part of an upcoming project. But next up, we have first synth. This one is a sliced version of Synth 329, which is one of my favorites. It's the one that sounds kind of like 16-bit old MIDI video gamey. The same one that on the low end gives kind of like that Sunsoft bass I talk about. But this is run through an 16th note, I think. This is 16th note slice pattern. And then it has a little bit of a kick at the end, and it goes up, and then it loops back around. Which, again, sets it apart from some of the other ones we've used on some of these tracks. But just these three creates kind of an interesting vibe. It sounds like you're walking down kind of like a darkened city streets, like really late at night, but everything is still lit up and you can see lights everywhere. Next up, we have a complementary synth line. This one is I think this is synth 330, but it's run through both the slicer and a filter to muffle it. And so it sounds like you're taking that kind of repeating beeping synth from the high version, and you're muting it out and making it a lot more lower and muffled, which kind of complements pretty well. It gives you like a lower end to sort of support the higher end. And then on loop track 5, we have an alternate synth melody. So this one doesn't mesh with these two, so it would have to be swapped, maybe in a part B or after a transition. Ooh, so we did filter transition, right? To muffle out the sound. If we took it off. And so this one is the same, I think this is the same instrument set. No, this is one that's one up, like 331, I believe. I think it's called Moon. But it's the same slicer pattern. Actually, no, this is pattern 2. I set the slicer slightly different, but it's hard to hear. But this sort of pairs with the bass line as an alternate melody, but it can't be played at the same time as the other two because the progression clashes too much. It sounds too dissonant. So this would be the part B that we work in and have a transition to this part of the song. And kind of weirdly enough, listening to it as I was putting everything together and then now listening to it played back, this song sounds like it came from Cave's Story. The synth types and the composition isn't exactly the same as the original old school music, but very much taking a flavor of some of the songs and stylings from Cave's Story, which is one of my favorite games. To me, it sounds like it could be an alternate universe version of the track Moon Song, which is my favorite song from Cave's Story. And that wasn't really the intention. I haven't thought about that soundtrack in a minute. But I think it works pretty well. This would definitely be a good track for a chill album, which I am working on. I've got a couple releases that are planned out for from early 24 on that are already ready to go. I need to see if I can get some artist collaboration on some of the stuff for it. But eventually there's going to be another chill album, similar to Neon Night Lounge. And so this one would probably fit really well on there. But we need to come up with a name for this. So like for Iconic and the folks watching in chat, let's come up with a good name for this one. Keeping in mind we've used Cityscape before. I already have one called something Cityscape. I know we have Metro City Cyberspace too. I think I'd know my own track titles. Metallic Cityscape. That's one. And there was another one, I think Lava King named in 3.0. Yeah, Metro City Cyberspace was the other one. Iconic says Streets of Vibes. How about we shorten it a little bit and call it Street Vibe? Street Vibes, plural. I think that will work. So I'll make a note. Where's my BGM list? Iconic saying gonna eat. Alright, we will move on to another track after I write this one down. And enjoy your dinner. Alright, have that captured. Let me save this. Wouldn't want to lose that particular file. And we'll copy this into a new one. I'm on 82 of 99, so we're pretty close to filling up this thing. Probably when I get back, I don't think I'll have time to do it before, I need to pull a bunch of the old recorded loops off of here and finish recording some of the ones that I haven't pulled. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 of them. And then wipe everything out so that I have room to create new stuff. Okay, so we've copied over to a new one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the mic boost again. We'll fire the synthesizer up. And this one I'm going to just sort of wing. I do technically have a theme that I'd like to record for an upcoming project. I'm kind of waiting for a second opinion before I do that. So I might just come up with something on the fly and then we'll come back and talk about it. So let's turn everything off. All right. Let us reconvene and talk about this one. First, let me save. Here it goes. So this one ended up being more kind of like the RPG, video game RPG style, which, let me turn this off. I'd mentioned that I'm potentially going to need to record a version of this, which maybe I'll do right after the stream since I have all my stuff hooked up. But this one has kind of an overworld theme, which is sort of where everything evolved and went to. So let's look at each component again and talk about it. So drumline, again, pretty simple, kind of a modified march almost. Okay, we'll leave it about there, so I'm not talking over the actual playback. So from here, we go into the bass line, which I went up on the black keys for this one, which I don't always do, just to kind of get a different key. Okay, there it goes. It's kind of a more kind of ominous tone to it, but because the progression of notes goes upwards, it doesn't sound like it's really kind of like doomy and I guess depressing or too ominous. It's kind of more mysterious in the middle, more or less. But then we bring in the dominant melody, which is an ocarina. This one plays with the melody the bass line establishes and puts up some half steps. I think it's half steps in between each one, but it's the same melody with a couple extra steps in between each note. And then we're bringing string synth line. Pretty subtle. This one's a bit more in the background. I don't want it to overpower the flute melody too much. But this uses some chords, again, harmonizing with the black keys that establish the bass line. The point was to not get too crazy with the combination of notes and melodies. I more or less experimented around with the same progression and then just kind of added harmonizing notes to the chords. And then the last track here is some really kind of like plucked pizzicato strings. And this uses the same melody as well. It takes the flute melody and it changes the rhythm slightly, but it uses the same progression of notes. Pitched. It might be the same octave. As far as progression and how this one would be performed and recorded, I think maybe we drop out the flute and the strings. And we let the chord strings sort of come to the forefront and everything else kind of backs off a little bit. Bring in the pluck strings to sort of accent it a little bit more, and then maybe we build back into the flute melody. So for this one, again, functioning kind of like an overworld theme, we have different parts that kind of come and go, and then the beat and the bass line stay constant to have that be like the driving force behind the theme. And for outros, we taper off to the end of the song. Kind of similar to what I've done on a few of the other overworld-ish themes. We drop the beat. And maybe we filter everything, not quite abruptly where I just turn it off. Maybe we filter out all the other tracks and end with the last few notes of the plucked melody, so it's the last thing you hear before the whole thing restarts and reloops back from the beginning. I think that could be an interesting way to do it. I may have to look and see compared to some of the other recorded themes and see if I've done that in that exact order. But that could be a good way to sort of outro the song and then, again, have it loop back into itself and start over from the top. Now for this one, since I might purpose this one for an upcoming project, I'm not going to bother soliciting suggestions for names. Well, this one would have a name already if I end up using it for the project. So we'll have to see. I will try and record this one right after I get done with the stream, compare it to another one, and we'll see. But I think we can, let's do another one. We don't normally have time to do 3 of these, 'cause normally I spend more time talking in the first half of the stream, but we're still on schedule. Can't run too late. In fact, let me check something real quick. Let's turn this back on so it's not dead silence. Okay, let me save this onto a new file. We'll clear everything off and we'll start a new one. Here we go. Okay, we're on file number 83. Let's wipe this out. Now for this one, I think I'm gonna go for a little bit higher energy, maybe more like a electronic or dance type theme. We'll see. We'll see if I actually manage to do it. But we'll bring in some more of our elements that we used on some of the other higher energy, kind of like projects similar to Far Future Days and whatnot. And we'll see if we can create something that's gonna up the energy level a bit compared to the last two. So what I'll do is, once again, turn off my boosts, turn on the synthesizer, and we will see what we create this time. All right. Make sure my mic stuff was back on. Let us reconvene. And I see Iconic is back. Hope you had a good dinner. Like I mentioned, I think this was before you came back, but this particular one I wanted to do something a bit higher energy, like a electronic dance-ish type song. Hence the kind of more, I don't want to say generic, but kind of a more like techno-ish vibe to it. And this one kind of went some interesting places, especially once you factor in the effects. I think that's what sets this one apart from some of the others. So let's do kind of a quick breakdown of the specific components of the song. So on the rhythm, pretty simple beat. Let me bring in the bass line. Okay, I think I need to drop this down a little bit. It's easier to hear. Okay, I recorded this one a little on the loud side, so I'm gonna leave it there. I'll just talk a little bit louder. So the bass line is kind of the stair-stepping melody that ascends and goes upwards. Pretty straightforward. And then the first synth comes in. This is the synth lead instrument, I believe. I wanted to have something that jumps up a little bit in the melody, and then it does that kind of stair step back down. We've done that a couple times, but not quite with this progression. And then from here we bring in the complementary synth. It's a string synth. Two notes. Just goes back and forth. Starts at one spot and then it drops down a little bit. And then it cycles back to the top and just repeats that over and over again. So the way I sort of envision the way this one would be structured and performed would be having these parts come and go and then circle back to the bass line and the rhythm, so they come in and out. It's kind of like the last one we did, and it lets the tempo and the bass line keep going and again kind of hold the entire song up, and then different parts swap in and out. But if we put the synths back on, one thing I did, I combined two track level effects, not input effects, and it kind of resulted in something interesting. So I put an eighth note slicer with pattern 1, just regular straight eighths, on top of a filter, and put both those effects on at once, and that's how you get this one. And I don't have it filtering or slicing the rhythm. The rhythm is unchanged. But the bass line and then the high synths together are being muffled and chopped, which creates this kind of stuttering, hiccuping effect. It sounds like a signal being interrupted. And I've done that to some effect on other tracks as well, but I don't normally pair these two effects together at the same time, because the slicer will just break up things and make it sound like it's sliced, literally sliced. But the filter muffles everything too and then mutes it out. So when you put both of them together, it sounds like everything's being dampened but also broken up by a set rhythm. And the eighth note rhythm of the slicer lines up with the beat, because the beat's just, it's eighth notes with like one double kick in there. And so that, I think, would be an interesting way to have like part B or a transition, and then we take it off. And maybe let the original uninterrupted bass line and rhythm play, and then cycle through, and maybe we outro by bringing the stuff back in. I don't think I want to end with the rhythm dropping out first, because we did that on, I think, the first one. We had the outro progression sort of cut off the percussion first, and then we let everything fade out. Maybe for this one we flip it. And we have just the empty percussion line, rhythm by itself go, and then finish out the entire track. I think that could be an interesting way to flip it around. I've done that before too, but I think we tend to drop everything out and end with like a melody instead of just a rhythm. So I'll have to give that some thought and figure out what I want to do. But we'll have to avoid kind of falling into the same pitfalls of the same structure over and over and over again. I definitely want to get into the same habits. But let me go ahead and save this. And interestingly enough, this is 4 of 5 loop tracks with something recorded. So technically, if I think of some other things I could throw into loop track number 5, if there's another instrument or another melody type that I think would be good to sort of pair. And I think I will probably cook this one a little bit longer before I record it, because it might be able to add some more things that complement, but it's a good start. And for an electronic type project for future stuff, I think this one would pair pretty well. And I think I'll hold off on getting a name for it until I have a more complete version, and then maybe I'll slot it into one of the other projects. And we'll see from there. That'll be probably the best way to do it, since it's technically not finished. But again, it's a good structure and it's a good start. So looking at the time, we're coming up on 2 hours. I don't think I have enough time to go through another track start to finish. We've done 3 of them, which is more than normal. So I think what we'll do is we'll wrap up a little bit early, because I got to go see to dinner. It is a work night. I got a bunch of stuff I need to do before I get ready to leave town. In fact, I got to go pack. So let us take a look at who's online now. We'll go ahead and raid someone. Pass on the good vibes. Where's my list? Oh, hey, Moo's online. I haven't seen them online in a really long time. They are doing Super Auto Pets. I don't know what that is. But we can go raid Moo. Let's see how they are doing. So let me cue that up. There it is. And let me go ahead and we will mute this and go to outro. And we'll call that a stream for today. So thanks again to everyone who came and hung out. Again, I know it's a little bit off schedule from when I normally do these, but after today, I will be heading to the spaceport and returning back to Homeworld for about a week. I'll get back into town next week, but I won't be physically back until probably the weekend. So I will figure it out. I mentioned on Twitter and for the stream announcements, it's probably going to be TBD as I have time. I could also be pretty wiped by the time I get back, and maybe we'll just start fresh the following week. But we will see. Yeah, thanks again for hanging out. Hope you all have a good rest of your evening. Now let's go see what Moo's doing.